and prior to that, I've had a few manipulative friends who would take my leg and just, you know, try and rip it out of its socket, and that was going to help the highly arthritic.
Yeah.
And it just flared me up. It was terrible.
Yeah, it was. The next question I have for Dr. McGill is, you speak about in back mechanic, low back disorders, about people with magical hands. Someone, a practitioner you send to that you kind of at the end of what you can do and you need a manual adjustment or some Graston or some kind of soft tissue approach. What's an example of a time where you need to refer out? And we're talking about low back in the hip. When's the time where you would need to say, okay, this person needs a little bit of a manipulation or soft tissue work?
Right. Well, first of all, I really stay within my area of expertise. So it's always the low back. I wouldn't go outside of that. But I don't have any manual skills, or you have a background in massage therapy.
Yeah.
I don't. And I think I've learned to feel certain things, but I can't treat those things. My hands and mind are clever enough to hit a target. So I might have, and I can think of several top flight athletes, Olympians, where I was able to address the mechanism of their pain and injury. But the final little bitch would be I couldn't deal with a muscle snag that we talk about neurogenic pain. Pain from the hip joint, from the lumbar spine, from the sacroiliac joints. They influence the motor patterns, and they influence how they're represented in the brain, and they influence the patterning of firing. There are times when I cannot change that pattern through corrective exercises, and I need to get rid of that existing little snag that keeps on triggering off. There are some very clever manipulative body workers around the world who are all good friends. I'm very familiar with their skills, and I will send that athlete with full confidence saying, I've done my best work. I need you to just focus on that little thing. Not a general massage. That will not work. It is just address the thing that needs addressing, leave everything else alone. And you know, we've had athletes where 2 or 3 treatments, that's it, just dealt with the little snag. We could then create a new engram, which is a motor pattern. It's now uncorrupted with pain because the pain is now gone. You rewrite that muscle memory or engram, and the person is back to pain-free performance again. So the soft tissue gurus, they make me look good, and my job is to make them look good. But, you know, I think of, sent top flight baseball players, for example, football players to Barents Baytos. You may have heard me mention Barents' name before in Los Angeles. Clayton Skaggs, he's the chief at the Central Institute for Human Performance in St. Louis. Now, you used the term magic hands. I cannot, even with all the training I've had, and I cannot explain what his hands do.
Right.
But he understands reflex. Well, I won't even attempt to describe what he does. But he can release things that I'll give you an example with myself. So as you know, I've got a fairly torn shoulder with one muscle that is now missing, its connection. But let's see now. Before Christmas, I could not laterally raise my arm without getting a real mechanical, it just got caught.
PowerX Strength CBD is 100% THC free from hemp. There's 0 THC in our products. And proudly, we've had multiple people get drug tested while taking our sublingual drops and gummies and have passed their drug tests. We have sublingual drops in cinnamon, strawberry, and original.
We have 4 topicals and balms: lavender, sage, lemongrass, and natural. We also have a roll-on product called CryoFreeze. It's 1,000 milligrams of CBD isolate with a menthol formula similar to BioFreeze. And lastly, we have our brand new gummy line in bears, worms, apple rings, peach rings, and watermelon slices. Thank you so much for your support, and have a great day.
And then now, I went to go see our newest master clinician, Joe Kamisa, just outside of New York City in New Jersey. And Joe really impressed me. He used variations of ART, active release therapy. And as you know, getting into subscap and whatnot, that's miserable. It hurts. And then he used a form of electrotherapy where the frequency is tuned to the targeted tissue and what you need to do. Well, I'm a skeptic.
Boy, it sounds a little hokey.
Yeah. But he took a wet towel, had to drink 3 glasses of water to fully hydrate. And as we know, water with salt is an electrolyte.
Yeah.
It's a what do you call the, if you drop a toaster into the
Electric impulse?
No, you drop a toaster into a swimming pool, it becomes a volume conductor.
Okay.
So it turns your
I wasn't even close to that one.
Yeah, it turns your body into a volume conductor. So he put a wet towel around my chest, and he put another wet towel on my arm over the electrodes. So now the current would flow at these different pulsed frequencies. Brian, I have 0 pain, and I can push overhead. And I struggled since last summer to do that. 1 treatment.
That's awesome. And he's in New Jersey.
He's in New Jersey. So there might be an example of, I had dry needling and all these other things that are rather non-specific.
Yeah, I don't really, I got mixed feelings on the dry needling and some of the reflexology stuff that I've seen people get significantly better. At least they believe they're getting better. So that's worth something sometimes too.
Well, I can tell you the clinician on all of those things you've mentioned matters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you want to go to the average surgeon or the one who just has an efficacy far beyond everybody else?
Mm-hmm.
And that certainly is true with the magic hands. And
yeah,
as you said, I think of the number of times I've been manipulated and that they make me worse.
Right. Right.
And, sometimes it's the people who are up there lecturing at conferences, and then you feel their hands and they brutalize you. But you find that person with the magic hands, and makes all the difference in the world.
It does. As a side question to that, with chiropractors and people that manipulate soft tissue, what are your thoughts on these people that do these extreme push-pulls with the straps and yank on the neck and yank on the hips and do just basically they're yanking on them and trying to get a big pop? It's gotten popular again.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a blanket opinion really on anything. As you know, I'm a very specific kind of thinker and approach to all of this. So after an assessment, I would be able to give you an opinion for that specific person and that specific procedure. But, I just think in my own life, as you know, I broke my hip as a youngster, and I've had hip replacements since, but I can remember going to a good friend who is a chiropractor, and he set me up in this, and then he said, well, I cannot take your knee into a side roll position on the table because my hip was so bad. So he climbed up on the table, took a contact on my iliac crest and jumped down on it. In other words, he broke open my sacroiliac to this. And then people will say, what? The sacroiliac joint is it's bulletproof. You can hurt. I can tell you, I crawled for quite a number of days. I couldn't have the pelvic integrity to support my body weight, and I crawled. I crawled into this, the funny thing is we're still friends, but there might be an example of quite a violent attempt to release something that never should have been released in the first place. It was just the wrong tool, the wrong thought process, and I was too young to know any better. But, you know, some of these, and prior to that, I've had a few manipulative friends who would take my leg and just, you know, try and rip it out of its socket, and that was going to help with highly arthritic.
Yeah.
And it just flared me up. It was terrible.
Yeah, it was.
And yet, other times, it's the most magical thing. So, you know, I think you were referring to what people would think of as mulligan techniques, looking after nags and snags.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're very, very subtle. And sometimes they are very aggressive. But I might think of someone like Stretch to Win. Oh, I'm tired today, Brian. Anne Frederick.
Okay.
So Anne Frederick is, I remember, I know Anne very well. And she was working on my hip one time, and this is probably 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And she just had my leg lifting up. She's not a big lady.
Right.
And, you know, I used to be bigger, as you know, and she just played with my hip for about 20 minutes. And I thought, oh, this poor woman, and she has my leg up on her shoulder holding it. 20 minutes.
She's sweating all over you?
No. And
I've had that happen, but that's not get a massage, they're sweating on your back.
Yeah. But we were laughing. And then all of a sudden, after 20 minutes, she did the most subtle, skillful little thing. I didn't limp for probably 3 weeks after that.
Okay.
And we went out for a beer afterwards. And, you know, what did you do? And we laughed. She romanced my hip. She romanced the neurology. So I finally gave it to her. So unconsciously, I was gripping.
Mm-hmm.
And
You surrendered it to her.
Yes, but prior to that, it was the grip that was causing the impacting compression on my hip all the time, causing the problem.
Yeah.
So she romanced it instead of a big, giant, crude bar.
Yep.
And then after 20 minutes, she took it, it gave, and it was fat. Didn't hurt. And I remember getting off the table and just floating. It was fabulous.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Please like my content, share my content. Check out powerxstrength.com for more information. Book a consult with me. Check out my CBD products. Check out my books. And thank you so much.